I carefully lifted a hoof and felt the leg curled around my side. I looked at the cloud-gray feathers resting gently on my flank and lower leg. I felt the warmth of breath on my neck, and for the longest time I could hardly breathe. Slowly I summoned the courage to turn my head and look over my shoulder. Glory. Sleeping. Breathing. Warm and soft and wonderful. This was a dream. I was still unconscious, or crazy, or dead. I slowly turned, and my motion made her stir. I held her in my rubbery hooves and pressed the side of her head to my chest. Her heart beat slow and steady and sure, the greatest sound in the world. Her purple eyes opened slowly, meeting mine. I stroked her hoof through my mane. I saw her lips curl into a gentle smile, and then she murmured softly, "Hey." Everything broke into a great tearing sob as I clenched my eyes shut and pressed my face into her chest. If this were a dream, I'd never wake. If I were crazy, I never wanted sanity. If this was the afterlife, then it was more than I ever deserved. I couldn't talk or breathe or think. All I could do was feel and cry and cough and make a complete mess of myself. Finally, I wiped my snotty nose with a hoof and squeaked out on my own, "Hey." And then there were two crying, laughing, hugging ponies instead of one. It was a while before my brain reset enough to be able to handle things. I was pretty sure I'd feel some significant emotional bruising from the mood whiplash that I'd just suffered. My brain was coming up with half-baked plots of putting her in power armor with one of those force shield thingies, one of Rampage's regeneration talismans, and the HMS Celestia to keep her safe. Maybe there was a protection megaspell? Nah, we couldn't just banish the two of us to the moon and be safe forever and ever. Lacuna could teleport us to the moon, right? I wasn't sure if we were still in Flash Industries or not. Actually, make that a not. From the rotten maps on the walls marked with rain clouds and smiling suns, I gathered we must be in a weather station. I glanced at my Pip-Buck navigation. Weather monitoring station number 1. It made sense. Weather stations had been used by Pegasi before and had all kinds of transmitters. Since I didn't have my braces or my gear, there wasn't much for me to do but wait. He hadn't even left me with a spoon. And that didn't let me do much besides cuddle next to Glory and try not to think about our immediate peril. That was incredibly easy. Glory was alive. I was dancing with my mental ponies in glee. Even the dealer had seen fit to grant us some privacy for a bit. "So, Light Hooves saved you?" I finally asked, once I'd calmed down enough to be able to ask questions rationally. We were prisoners in some grimy building, captives of one of my friend's greatest enemies, and looking forward to an unknown and ugly fate. I still didn't care. I could have blasted a hole in the wall with my happy feelings alone. North Star, actually, one of the Pegasi with him, she caught me when I fell. For a Pegasus, falling to your death had to be high on the list of ways not to die. She stroked her hoof along my dirty striped mane. I needed a shower, and probably help washing, given my bendy legs. I knew just who to ask. "Lighthoof decided not to kill me, though," she said, adding after a moment's hesitation, "and I made a deal with him to stop him from killing you." "What kind of deal?" I asked with a little frown. "Targeting talismans for your life. The deal was that he would save you, patch you up, and let us go, and I'd tell North Star where to find more targeting talismans in the wasteland once we were free." Glory bit her lip as she dropped her gaze. It was all I could think of. "It's fine." And honestly, at that moment, I couldn't care less. I was sure that eventually I'd find out what he wanted them for and be all angry about it, but right now, I'd have gift-wrapped the talismans for him. "He's also going to check your Pip-Buck for any files or recordings you made of him," she added as she sat up. "Do you think he'll honor his part?" "I certainly hope so," the Crimson Pegasus said from the door. In his black Thunderhead uniform, he certainly cut quite the sinister figure. I've come to that decision. When it comes to blackjack, one must proceed with care. You're a murdering bastard and a monster, I pointed out, scowling at him as I shifted myself into something of an upright position on the bed. For once, though, I didn't wonder if I could take his head off now. And you fed my subordinate to a raider, he replied smoothly, making Glory blink in surprise. I gave a sheepish little smile. Ha! I had just discovered their laboratory. I got a bit carried away. Glory looked as if she both wanted to hear more and would rather never speak of it again. You tend to do that, Lighthooves said dryly. In any case, let's not quibble over each other's degrees of monsterdom. Please believe me when I say that everything I've done has been to preserve my home and people. He said calmly. I really didn't want to hear it. Give me my braces and gear. I had a shower to arrange. By the goddesses, I would build a shower for the two of us if I had to. Just watch me. Yeah, I've heard it before. You're trying to protect the Enclave from the surface, I said with a dismissive wobble of my hoof. No, he replied evenly. I'm trying to protect Thunderhead from the Enclave. Huh? My confusion must have been particularly evident, and I was glad I wasn't the only one. Glory was frowning, looking just as baffled as I. He sighed, shaking his head. I expected Blackjack to be ignorant of our policies, but you should have known better, Morning Glory. May I rant a little? I think that, since you've seen fit to give me the role of a villain, I'm entitled to give a little explanation. I looked at her, and she shrugged in return. Finally, I sighed and snuggled up to her and spoke. All right, I could use a good story. He chuckled. I'm sure you'll find it quite dull. Once upon a time, there was a great war, and over time, the stresses of it pushed the Pegasus people away from the unicorns and earth ponies. When the bombs fell, an Equestrian Skyguard made the decision to fall back and close the skies. We had already lost Cloudsdale. With the air full of radioactive dust, we did what we could to save ourselves. And yes, I acknowledge that in doing so we abandoned countless ponies, as well as our own ministry mare. For a time, there was great uncertainty as to what should be done. Food stores were running low. Fear was at an all-time high. Exploration teams that went to the surface reported only death and destruction. Everything was at a tipping point. And then the Enclave happened. What? I asked with a little frown. The look of fear on Glory's face made my mane prickle. Glory bit her lip. It was an event 10 or 20 years ago, after the bombs fell. The sun and the moon, they were in the sky together, and then they came together. I got at her in shock. They couldn't come together. How could they ever come together? Pegasi thought it was some sort of final zebra superweapon, that the moon would burn up and the sun would go out, that the world would end. But apparently it was only temporary. The moon had moved between the sun and Equestria, but the chaos was terrible. Lighthooves nodded grimly. In the end, it was the military that restored order. Martial law was declared. Navarro and Thunderhead dispatched troops to quell the rioting. And when it was over, the military formed as a united force that persists today. The Enclave. The Grand Pegasus Enclave. He said with a mirthless smile. And it is a lie of democracy. Glory immediately huffed, rolling her eyes. Not this garbage again. You sound like some conspiracy theorist. The Enclave's charter states that its leaders are chosen through citizen elections. There's no way we'd tolerate its rules and laws otherwise. Glory sounded disdainful, but I couldn't help but think that Lighthooves was the kind of guy who'd be such a conspiracy theorist. Democracy is a tool used by the strong few to convince the weak that they are strong. But every serious politician, candidate in the Enclave, has ties with the military. Every political decision takes the military's needs first and foremost. Every political challenger to the military drops out or gets arrested, discredited, or converted. and every 20 or 30 years, the Enclave faces a threat that only the military can solve. He chuckled as he looked right at me. The last was the attack by a dragon fire fiend against Shadowbolt Tower. What a coincidence that the Enclave had raptors nearby conducting training drills that your father's team was prepared to repel the beast. Are you saying the military knew Fire Fiend was going to attack? Glory said skeptically, but with worry. That my father... No, I'm saying the military encouraged Fire Fiend to attack, he said with a terrible certainty. An elaborate show to keep the public safe and thankful for the military's protection. Your father was likely ignorant of the details. Heroism is so difficult to fake and plays so well to the masses. But when he returned with your mother, well, that threw the narrative off completely. Everybody was supposed to be celebrating the triumph of the Enclave and giving their thanks for military protection, not starting to think about helping the surface. I snorted softly. Okay, so the Enclave military are a bunch of dung bags. What does it have to do with you? It's very simple. It's been 30 years since Fiendfire, and the military is looking for another display to justify its existence. Navarro has been mobilizing its raptors and thunderheads for training drills. Personnel have been recalled and mobilized. The academic experts have been chattering about potential threats. A surface power, Zebra forces, a reorganization of the Griffins, or another dragon attack. There's even been speculation of a threat from the stars. Please, nobody would take that sort of thing seriously, Glory said with a dismissive wave of her stump. The perfectionary gesture made Lighthooves look a bit ill before he returned his usual level of snot. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's meant to get the masses thinking about the possibility of an attack, because ponies are increasingly questioning the need for the military. Why not allocate more resources to food production, establish new cloud settlements, or... He stared right at Glory. Helping the surface. Glory flushed and retorted, well, why not? Lighthooves sighed. The military has no interest in the surface beyond possible war resources. But when Thunderhead had the audacity to buck the mandate of the Grand Pegasus Enclave and actually allow civilians to go to the surface, it was a slap in the face of Navarro. It was virtually a declaration of independence. He chuckled before continuing. For the first time ever, the public of Thunderhead violated the cardinal rule of the Enclave and did what they thought was right, rather than what was in the military's best interests. Lighthooves looked coolly at Glory, and in doing so, gave the military its next target, Thunderhead. What? Are you? Glory rose to her hooves. That's insane. The military would never attack Thunderhead. They could, they would, and they would enjoy it. Lighthooves replied calmly. Navarro has never approved of Thunderhead's autonomous zone, and in establishing the Volunteer Corps, you have given them every incentive to attack. Word is getting out that other Pegasus communities about the metal trading, and they're questioning why they don't implement similar programs. The moral questions that were easy to ignore a century ago have resurfaced with terrifying swiftness. You very nearly sparked a revolution with blueberries. They'd need a pretext, Glory muttered. They couldn't just attack us. We're all Enclave. She started to shake, but the thought was sinking in. While Glory was trying to cope with the implications, Lighthooves looked on with a small expression of satisfaction. So what's your part in all this? I asked. He hesitated, then gave a manite shrug. Mine is simple. To prevent a civil war within the Enclave at any cost, he replied evenly.